Colonization, a word that evokes images of exploitation, resistance, and the fight for freedom. What happens when entire continents are reshaped by foreign powers? Join us as we dive deep into the colonization of Africa and Asia, uncovering the stories of resistance, the leaders who fought for independence, and the lasting legacy of this turbulent chapter in history. Colonization, a process where powerful nations exert control over less powerful regions, has left an indelible mark on the world. Nowhere is this more evident than in Africa and Asia, where European powers carved out vast empires, exploiting resources and imposing their will on millions. But this story is not just about conquest. It's also about resistance, resilience, and the ultimate fight for freedom. Colonization in Africa. In the late 19th century, European nations embarked on what became known as the Scramble for Africa. Motivated by a desire for new markets, raw materials, and global prestige, powers like Britain, France, Belgium, and Germany divided Africa among themselves with little regard for the continent's diverse cultures, languages, and peoples. The Berlin Conference, 1884 to 1885. This infamous conference, held in Berlin, Germany, saw European leaders draw arbitrary borders across Africa, dividing the continent into colonies without consulting any African leaders. This set the stage for decades of exploitation and conflict as colonial powers imposed their rule over African lands. One of the most brutal examples of colonization occurred in the Congo, where King Leopold II of Belgium established the Congo Free State as his private domain in 1885. Under his rule, millions of Congolese were forced into labor, particularly in rubber and ivory extraction, leading to widespread atrocities and the deaths of an estimated 10 million people. As Congo gained independence in 1960, Patrice Lumumba emerged as a leading figure. The first Prime Minister of the Democratic Republic of Congo, Lumumba was a passionate advocate for true independence and sought to rid the country of neo-colonial influences. His assassination in 1961, orchestrated by both Belgian forces and the CIA, made him a martyr for the African independence movement. Nigeria, the most populous country in Africa, fell under British control by the late 19th century. The British utilized a strategy of indirect rule, governing through existing local leaders, but imposing their economic and political systems. Nigeria became a significant source of raw materials, particularly palm oil, cocoa, and tin, which fueled the British economy. The amalgamation of 1914. One of the defining moments in Nigeria's colonial history was the amalgamation of the northern and southern protectorates in 1914, creating the modern nation-state of Nigeria. This merger was designed for administrative convenience and economic efficiency, but ignored the deep cultural and ethnic differences within the country, laying the groundwork for future tensions. Prominent figures who helped in the Nigeria independence are as follows.
Nnamdi Azikiwe.
Often referred to as the father of Nigerian nationalism, Nnamdi Azikiwe played a crucial role in Nigeria's fight for independence. As a journalist, he used his platform to criticize colonial rule and advocate for self-governance. Azikiwe later became Nigeria's first president after independence in 1960, symbolizing the dawn of a new era for the country. Obafemi Awolowo. Another prominent leader, Obafemi Awolowo, was a key figure in Nigeria's independence movement. He championed education and economic development as paths to liberation, and his leadership in the western region set the stage for Nigeria's post-colonial progress. Ahmadu Bello. Representing the northern region, Ahmadu Bello was instrumental in uniting Nigeria's diverse groups during the independence struggle. As a leader of the Northern People's Congress, he ensured that the interests of the North were represented in the new nation. South Africa's colonial history is unique, with both the Dutch and British exerting control over the region. The discovery of diamonds and gold intensified European interest, leading to wars and the eventual establishment of British rule. However, it was the system of apartheid, implemented in 1948, that marked one of the darkest chapters in South Africa's history. Apartheid legally segregated the population based on race, disenfranchising the black majority and reserving wealth and power for the white minority. Prominent figures who helped in the South Africa independence are as follows. Nelson Mandela, perhaps the most famous figure in the struggle against apartheid, spent 27 years in prison for his resistance to the system. Upon his release in 1990, Mandela led negotiations that ended apartheid and became South Africa's first black president in 1994. His leadership and commitment to reconciliation helped steer the country through a peaceful transition from a racist regime to a democratic society. Archbishop Desmond Tutu, a vocal critic of apartheid and a champion of nonviolent resistance, played a crucial role in the struggle. Awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1984, Tutu was instrumental in promoting reconciliation in post-apartheid South Africa through the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Ghana, the gateway to African independence. Ghana, formerly the British colony of the Gold Coast, became the first sub-Saharan African country to gain independence in 1957. Led by Kwame Nkrumah, Ghana's independence inspired other African nations to fight for their freedom. Nkrumah was a leading Pan-Africanist who envisioned a united Africa free from colonial rule. His efforts to modernize Ghana and promote African unity made him one of the most influential leaders in the continent's decolonization movement. Algeria, a French colony, witnessed one of the most brutal wars for independence. The Algerian War of Independence, 1954 to 1962, saw the National Liberation Front, FLN, lead a bloody struggle against French forces, culminating in Algeria gaining its independence in 1962. As a key leader of the FLN, Ben Bella became Algeria's first president after independence. He was a symbol of the Algerian fight for freedom and helped inspire liberation movements across Africa. Colonization in Asia. Moving to Asia, the British Empire's most prized possession was undoubtedly India. Colonized by the British East India Company in the 18th century and later directly governed by the British Crown, India became a cornerstone of the British Empire. Its vast resources of spices, textiles, and raw materials fueled Britain's Industrial Revolution. Yet the cost to India was severe: famines, economic exploitation, and cultural erosion. Prominent figures who helped in the India independence are as follows. Mahatma Gandhi's philosophy of nonviolent resistance, satyagraha, became the cornerstone of India's struggle for independence. His leadership during key events like the Salt March of 1930 and the Quit India movement in 1942 galvanized millions of Indians to demand freedom. As the first Prime Minister of independent India, Nehru worked alongside Gandhi and played a key role in shaping the country's post-colonial future, emphasizing industrialization and secularism. In Southeast Asia, European colonization took on different forms. The Dutch East India Company established control over Indonesia, while the French dominated Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia, collectively known as French Indochina. Prominent figures. Ho Chi Minh led Vietnam's fight against French colonial rule and later against the United States during the Vietnam War. His leadership in the Viet Minh, a communist-led independence movement, resulted in the defeat of French forces at the Battle of Dien Bien Phu in 1954, leading to Vietnam's independence. Under Dutch control for over 3 centuries, Indonesia's fight for independence was long and arduous. The Japanese occupation during World War II weakened Dutch control, and after the war, Indonesian nationalists, led by Sukarno, declared independence in 1945. The Dutch resisted but ultimately recognized Indonesia's sovereignty in 1949. Prominent figures. Sukarno became Indonesia's first president and a central figure in the country's struggle for independence. He advocated for non-alignment during the Cold War and sought to unite the diverse archipelago into a single nation. Unlike other Asian countries, China and Japan had different experiences with colonization. While China faced semi-colonization, with Western powers establishing spheres of influence, Japan itself became an imperial power, colonizing Korea and parts of China. Prominent figure. Sun Yat-sen, the father of modern China, played a pivotal role in overthrowing the Qing dynasty and establishing the Republic of China in 1912. He advocated for Chinese sovereignty and resistance against foreign domination. Colonization in Africa and Asia was a period marked by exploitation and oppression, but also by resilience and the fight for freedom. The struggles of leaders like Nelson Mandela, Nnamdi Azikiwe, Kwame Nkrumah, Mahatma Gandhi, and Ho Chi Minh inspired generations to challenge colonial rule and reclaim their nations. Today, both continents continue to grapple with the legacies of colonization, political instability, economic challenges, and social divisions. Yet, the stories of resistance remind us of the power of unity and determination in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds. History is more than just the past, it's the foundation of our present and future. If you found this deep dive into colonization insightful, be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more historical explorations that connect the dots between then and now. Join us next time for another journey through time.